mediocre, but we have the opportunity to play like gods for the next half of football. But we can't be afraid to lose. There's no room for fear in this game.
This is the New Hampshire High School Football Show.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
You can't stand the way this place is. Take yourself to higher places.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
The New Hampshire High School Football Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
You got heart, charisma, and a lot of skill.
Take yourself to higher places.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier and Dave Haley from NHSportspage.com.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Let's go play some football.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the New Hampshire High School Football Show. We do it each and every Saturday morning during the New Hampshire High School football season between 8 and 9 a.m. Two fine stations here in New Hampshire, News Radio 610 and 96.7, the legendary WGIR out of Manchester, AM 610, and of course 96.7 FM on the Seacoast. I'm Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley, NHSportspage.com. David, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pete. I just was noticing that in your two games that you covered this year, the winning team scored over 50 points.
It must be something.
We gotta
about
find
me.
you. We gotta find you a 10-7 slugfest next week.
Oh, gee, I know how to pick them. I was at the Concord Salem game last night, and the winning team, of course, had 52. The losing team, a lot less than that. We'll get into that as Dave Haley brings us the scoreboard. Why don't we get right to the scoreboard? Not mess around at all. We'll go around the state. 18 games last night in New Hampshire high school football, and Dave Haley's scoreboard is brought to you by New Hampshire Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement and that Buyers Beware program, reminding all adults it is against the law to provide alcohol to minors, even if your team scores over 50 points in a game.
Which quite a few teams did. Remember when we talked years ago about when the Bedford kids all left west to go to Bedford, and what a great rivalry that was going to be?
Can't wait for that.
Remember
first
that
game.
was going to be unbelievable, like a great 61-0.
Yeah.
Bedford over West.
I was at.
I don't even have a joke there.
That game started at 4 o'clock yesterday, right down the street from our WGIR studios. So I was able to steal over there and catch about a half of football. I left
second
when it
or
was
first?
The first half, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I kind of knew what it was going to be like.
I was
going to
say, if it was the second half, you just get right back in your car and just keep driving. It's like you saw a car crash and just didn't want to report it.
I had seen enough, before halftime. We will talk with Kurt Hines, the head coach of the Bedford Bulldogs. He sent me a text last night just clearing it, saying, hey, we pulled the starters in the second half.
Yeah.
I'm like, Coach, I was there. I saw enough.
We're not here to accuse. It's not that kind. It's not outside the line show over here.
No.
Other action, BG 42-20 over Dover. BG got up big early in that one. Dover scored a couple late touchdowns, but BG moves to 1-1. Good game last night. I picked this one wrong, by the way. Spalding, Justin McIsaac, Spalding, Red Raiders 27-14 over Timberlane. That's a good win for Spalding. I mean, that's a game that you see. You look back on that score late in the season, and it may have ramifications for the playoffs. Game of the night, and who knew it? Winnicott 20-17 over your Nashua North Titans. I know
Why
you're
my Nashua North
technically a
Titans?
South. You're a Nashua guy.
I'm a Purple Panther.
You own the hometown. But Inge Wiesner with a late touchdown. Alex Boucher, our Players Lounge member, had a huge game from Winnicott, and he's playing terrific. But Nashua North got a long interception return for a touchdown by Dimitri Jackson early in that game and almost pulled off a huge upset. But 2017, Winnicott. Game you were at with the great John Kesty, 52-13. Concord beats Salem. We'll talk more about that one. I want to hear your
They're for
thoughts.
real. That's all. That's what I'll say right now. Concord is for real. They're a contender.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
for sure. For the championship. Not just for a playoff spot, for the championship.
No, wow.
Yeah.
Pete Terrier. And nice little segue, because the Manchester Central team they destroyed last week hung in there. First game under the lights at Pinkerton, 37-20. Manny Lattimore and Pinkerton come back and win that game pretty comfortably, but Manchester Central was up early in that game. Abe Madra had a 60-yard touchdown, 37-20 Pinkerton over Central. Central hung in there. Another game of the night, Merrimack was down 3 touchdowns, came back 53-47 over Manchester Memorial. I know Roger Brown, our friend Roger Brown, was at that one, so I may give him a call later. I want to hear about that one. But terrific game. Devin Gillis is a really good quarterback for Merrimack.
And did you notice when I sent you the possible games this week that we're going to cover with the video camera from nhsportspage.com, I included that Merrimack Memorial game and said, this one could be good. This one could be pretty interesting.
Stop listening to me. But for basketball, you should follow my lead, but you really should go. Go with your heart next week. I'm not telling you where to go. Division II, this was kind of a surprise score. Kingswood put up 38 points. They beat Conval 38-6. Merrimack Valley, they've gotten a lot of press this week. 39-0 over Kearsarge. Kearsarge is young. They got a nice little running back named Riley Antel, who's a sophomore. But
how do you say the quarterback's name of Merrimack Valley? Ivan something.
Ivan Nisanguru. I've written it a million times, but I don't know how to pronounce it. And the kid emailed me too, so I need to just.
We better start learning how to pronounce that name.
Yeah, we
better.
You
know the coach, Dave Jackson, Merrimack Valley?
Used to be at St. A's, right?
Well, he was a St. A's assistant. He was a South assistant for a long time. I think he worked for Memorial as well. We graduated together from Nashville High.
Oh, really?
Back in '88, yeah. We played on a basketball team together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And
Not the Nashville basketball team. No, it was like a city
CYO
team.
with your little shorts.
Yeah.
They got a kid, I believe it's Tyler Bird, who's a running back over there. Merrimack Valley is very, very good. So we'll talk more about these guys. Portsmouth bounces back 35-0 over my childhood rival, the Laconia Sachems. Connor DeCesare had 3 touchdown passes, and Jake Becker had a very big game for Portsmouth. They bounced back. This is another surprise. Well, not a surprise, but Hanover was down to Sauhegan. They came back behind Sean Cavallero, their all-state quarterback. 25-21, Hanover over Sauhegan. Monadnock, in a game I picked wrong. Monadnock's tough. 20-7 on the road at Lebanon. That was a good football game last night. Another score, Trinity was losing to Milford. Those two teams went back and forth. Harrison Erta had a touchdown to get Milford up on Trinity, but Austin Chambers scored with 11:26 left in the game to put Trinity up 24-20. They added another score late to win 30-20. So Trinity, Steve Burns and those guys have now gone on the road to beat Portsmouth and Milford to open the season. That's very, very impressive start.
Yeah, no, very impressive.
Division III, we'll wrap it up with Division III. Fall Mountain moves to 2-0, 28-0 over Raymond. Bow, 49-0, all over Franklin. You don't see Franklin lose that way. And remember, Greg Husband's not there anymore. But they've got a very good running back, Corey Parent. But 49-0 Bow. Nice win there for those guys. Campbell, 21-20 over Stevens. That's a bit of a surprise for me, but nice win for Campbell. And I fear that my Guilford Golden Eagles are not good because they lost to Newport 26-6 last week, and Newport lost 56-6 to Pelham last night.
Pelham's back, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, they were really good in Division 5.
They always seem to be in flux between divisions, and I think it really screwed with that team for a while.
Yeah, they struggled over the last couple of years, but congratulations. Did you get the South Alvern score? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, from the other night.
Because that was actually, it started on Thursday night.
Yeah, South wins without Trevor Knight, of course, who's going to be out, was out this week and maybe next week. 35-0 over Alvin South with the win there. That is Pete Terrier's alma.
Well, and I went to at least the beginning part of that game on Thursday night. I had a promotion down in Nashua for our sister station Rock 101, so I figured, hey, it's in Nashua, I'm going to go and catch as much as I can. So I went down there and I caught the first half of that South Alvern game, and South was up 21-0, and I left, and my phone died, and I couldn't follow Twitter. I saw Roger there from the Union Leader, and I saw Joe Marcellina, and I was like, guys, keep tweeting because I want to know what's going on with this game. And my phone dies like 5 minutes later. So the next morning I wake up to see who won. I find out that it got suspended because of a bad thunder and lightning storm, and they finished it up yesterday, so South scored a couple more touchdowns. Knight, you're right, he was there, he was wearing his jersey, but he had a brace on that right hand protecting the thumb. He was in shorts. He just looks like he's ready to have a big year if he can get healthy and get on the field.
Complete speculation. We love it when people just throw things out without facts behind it, but here it goes. I'm about to do it. You imagine it's one of those. I think they could afford to kind of sit him this week and take their precautions with him and so forth. You wonder if it's the kind of injury where he may have been able to come back and play, because it doesn't sound like it's a serious injury, but you want to make sure that kid's 100% because he's terrific.
And obviously. they do have some other talent on
Yeah.
that team. I mean, the backup quarterback, Malik Langa, I think it's very clear that they're just hoping that he can just bide the time until Trevor's back. They don't expect him to go out and win a game.
Defense, 35-0.
They got a very good
Yeah.
defense, and they got a running back. This kid, Andrew DeCarteret. He reminds me a lot. He's small and he's tough. He's like a what do they call it? A water plug. He's just like one
Water
of those
bug.
fire hydrant. No, like a water bug is like a real tiny kid who's fast and moves quickly. This
CJ
kid's like a fire hydrant. Basically.
Oh, I got you. He's a big kid.
And he is tough. He reminds me of there was a kid that played for Nashua back in the day, younger brother of a kid that I grew up, Jeff Thibotot, Eric Thibotot. He was small, but he was very, very built and tough and hard to bring down. And that's what this kid, DeCarteret, reminds me of. I think Eric Thibotot played like in those late 90s, maybe mid-90s.
Josh Ream. Remember
team.
Josh Ream at Summersworth last year? Same kind of build.
Yeah, same kind of build.
Yep.
Yeah, but faster than
Yeah.
Josh Ream.
Yeah.
Josh Ream was kind of like a bulldozer. This kid's very, very fast as
Yep.
well. So they're good. They got some talent. I think they may have lost Robbie Smythe, who was an outstanding junior playmaker for them, scored a touchdown in that game. The first touchdown, he got hurt on defense, and he was down for a while, and they basically had to carry him off. It was a leg situation. It did not look good, just looking at the kid's face coming off the side. So if they lose him, that's going to be a tough loss. But they've got some talent, and they're young. Dave.
Yeah.
I was looking at the roster.
Yeah.
They have less than 10 seniors on that team, Nashville South, so they're going to be good for a couple of years, even though Trevor Knight's going to graduate.
They
this
feel
year.
like they should. I mean, we'll see how Exeter moves. Exeter's got a big test at Keene.
Yeah.
But that's a terrific football game. But Pinkerton is not a dominating football team. We can say that right now.
Right.
And I mean, they can. Brian O'Reilly is one of the best. So I mean, they may be at the end, but they're not now. And I mean, if you're Nashville South, it's win or go home. I mean, it's winner. There's nothing acceptable underneath it to those guys, especially Trevor's senior year before he heads to UNH.
I think it's open this year. We've talked in the past
Yeah.
about it being wide open. I think it is. I think that Exeter is
A lot of new names at Exeter.
tough, but like you said, there is a lot of new names, and you don't know, what they're like and what they're going to do.
Well,
huge test tonight out on the road in Keene.
That's what I wrote about in the Thursday Thoughts. Just plugged myself. Was that they got Jay and Zenga and kids like Zach Adler and a lot of kids that were players before, but now have to step up, and they've never won. I mean, there's no more Tyler Grant, and I mean, there's a lot of new names there that need to prove it on the road. New quarterback, so yeah, I'm very curious to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game tonight. All right, we'll take a break, come back, and I want to talk a little bit about the game that I was at, the Concord game against Salem last night. Man, Concord is for real. They are a contender for sure in Division I. They may be the best team. I had them voted as high as number 3 in my my initial Union Leader WGIR WMUR Power Poll ballot last week. I don't know if I can move them up anymore because you got Bedford winning 61-0. You have Exeter doing whatever they're doing, but Exeter, Bedford, Concord, those guys are all legitimate top 3 teams. We'll talk about that game. Concord, Salem, 52-13 win by the Crimson Tide. We got the highlight package, which is going to be up on nhsportspage.com, so you can check out what they look like in person. Walters Indy, one of my favorite players in the entire league. We'll talk about that Concord game when we return to the New Hampshire High School Football Show. News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Welcome back to the best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football on the New Hampshire High School Football Show on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Pete Terrier, Dave Haley back here on the New Hampshire High School Football Show. We're bringing you the show 8 to 9 a.m. on Saturday mornings now on these two fine stations, News Radio 610, 96.7. About 10 minutes or so from now, we'll be talking with Bedford football coach Kurt Hines after his team hung a 61-0 blanking on their rivals,
Ran the score up.
Manchester West.
I heard they had the starters in till the very end.
No.
And he was throwing the ball with seconds left, calling timeouts.
Look, Bedford.
No?
No, that was not the case. That was not the case. You can ask Kurt that
It's a
himself.
joke.
In person
I
in a
know.
second.
Never. I've talked to him. Great guy.
So we'll talk to Kurt Hines in just a few minutes from now. The game I was at last night, Memorial Field in Concord. Had to get a look at this Concord Crimson Tide team who, a little bit more than a year ago, Jamie Staten from WMUR TV was in the studio, sitting right where you are right now, Dave.
Jamie
and he
Staten.
told me Concord is a playoff team prior to the 2012 season, and I laughed at him. And they were 6-4, and they just missed out on the playoffs. But this is a different team this year.
Yeah.
They've relied on Tolbert Nemo for the last, 3-4 years. And I think maybe over-relied on him. When who knew that waiting in the wings was this new batch of up-and-coming, outstanding running backs.
They have two of them now.
Yeah, Walter Zindi, number 42. Big bowling ball type of player. Really, really powerful.
Great
and
speed, though, when he
great
gets on the
speed.
edge. Boom.
Watch the 91-yard touchdown run he has up the middle on the nhsportspage.com video highlight package.
I absolutely will.
Leo Sude, who is a sophomore, number 8.
Little guy.
Great speed. Barely touched the ball last night. Didn't have to. Mark Gaudette, who was the quarterback at the start of the season last year, got replaced by this kid, a sophomore, Robbie Law, who came in and led his team to a big victory over Nashua South last year. And they knew right then and there. The coaches knew that Law was a good quarterback, could throw, could run. And now Gaudette's being used as a running back and catching passes, from the wing position, the slot position. And he is a very, very good player. They got the wide receiver that everybody knows about, Samuel Smith, who caught a big touchdown
6'1",
pass
190,
last night.
tight end,
He's very, very athletic. I mean, they got weapons.
Yeah, they do have weapons. They're loaded.
Remember the weapons that Central had last year?
Yep.
I mean, with the real good quarterback in Riley Cody, they had the great receiver in Pelletier, the outstanding running backs. This Concord team has that kind of weapons all over the field. It's kind of hard to key on one facet of the game because they can beat you in all kinds of different directions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They look good in that jamboree. We watch them. They got a fun game next week. They go at Merrimack, which should be fun with a lot of points.
Yeah.
And then Memorial and Londonderry after that. So conceivably, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but if they can get through Merrimack and Memorial, they got back-to-back Londonderry and Pinkerton. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of Tolbert. Teams could focus on Tolbert Nemo, and I don't think they can do that anymore. You talk about Gaudette. I remember when he was the starting quarterback. He's just a good football player.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Wherever you put that kid, either side of the ball, he's a smart kid, does a really nice job, and yeah, they're very explosive. Special teams now, they're more explosive, and Robbie Law now has been through each team one time or so, and this is Eric Brown. I believe it's his 5th year at Concord, and he's done a terrific job. And when we Justin McIsaac and I interviewed them with John at the Jamboree, they said straight out their goal is to make the playoffs.
They're gonna,
but they get it. They understand that they should be there, and they kept saying over and over again, we want to get in. And then once they're in, they'll turn around and say, hey, we're here. Let's do this.
Think about this for a second, Dave, about making the playoffs. And the way it is now, they're in the conference with Bedford, Manchester Central, Manchester West, Manchester Memorial. Okay?
Yep.
I think I got them all. Concord, Manchester Central, Manchester West, Manchester Memorial.
Sounds right.
And Bedford. All right, so 2 of those teams are going to make it. It looks like now the 2 best teams are going to be Bedford and Concord in that conference.
Right.
Central probably going to be on the outside looking in because I don't know if they're not as good as Concord or Bedford. I can say that right now.
They're going to have to beat Bedford now. Central has to
get in.
Which is, I know.
And hope they lose to somebody else.
I'm sure. A lot of people out there would sit there and go, wow, "We're doing this already." It's.
I know.
It's not even the second week of September. It's the second week of September, and we're already doing must wins. They close the season at Bedford. Central does, but to get back to what you were saying,
I think Bedford has to come to Manchester. I think that's what it is. Because I remember in my season preview, I had noted that game as a key game to watch, and I think it's Bedford at Central in the final game of the regular season.
Right.
But what I'm saying, if it is Concord and Bedford in those 2 playoff spots in that Central division, that, you know what, that shows me that maybe the 2 best teams in the state might be facing off. And look, like we said, it's very, very early.
Yeah, let's not forget Exeter here.
Well, I know, but, I mean, Concord and Bedford are ranked 2 and 3 in the poll right now. Not that the poll is a be-all, end-all, but conceivably you could have two of the best teams in the same conference playing each other for the conference championship, and the second best team could be on the outside, not even getting to the Final Four.
Concord plays, as we said, plays Memorial in 2 weeks. If Concord wins that game against Memorial, they're going to have a very tough time not making the playoffs. I mean, again, they're not going to lose to West. I mean, they're just not. And then, that would put them at 3-0 in the division.
And I don't know who else they play. I mean, you got the Concord schedule. What other conference do they play? Because they'll play all the teams within their conference, so that's 4 games, and then there'll be 5 other games that they play.
They play Pinkerton,
so they do play Pinkerton,
Londonderry, Merrimack, and Goffstown. They play Goffstown, who they played in the Jamboree. They beat pretty. No. I'm sorry. They beat Timberlane in the Jamboree. No, they beat Goffstown in the Jamboree. How's it going, Dave?
Yeah.
Having a conversation. You're fine. Just you can leave. I'm having a conversation with myself. Yeah, that's who they play. They play Merrimack, Londonderry, Pinkerton, and Goffstown are their out of division foes. So.
Well, they're a quality team.
What was the crowd like?
It was a decent crowd. It wasn't like crazy, but it was a pretty good crowd. Great band Concord has. Salem, look, they're going to struggle. They got a brand new coach for the second straight year, Rob Pike. He was on that staff with Coach Adam Gagney. The quarterback that they're using is a transfer from Central Catholic, John Saratani. He threw a nice touchdown pass to Jake Poore. Jake Poore's been around for a couple of years, real good wide receiver, but they don't have a whole lot else. Jason Martinez can do some things at over 100 yards rushing last week. Didn't do much at all last night against that Concord defense. They are in a rebuilding mode in Salem. The numbers are okay in terms of the amount of kids they had dressed.
Yeah.
But they're definitely rebuilding. Jack Gaddy, we talked about it about Coach Mike Bellevue from Sauhegan. He stepped down pretty much at the right time, it looks like, at Sauhegan, because their numbers aren't there. The program isn't where it was, and he kind of saw the writing on the wall. I think the same thing with Coach Gaddy at Salem a couple years ago, after Jakes went away to college, and then Jerickson Fedrick and Canoni and Lorenz and those guys. After those guys were out of there, and he kind of looked ahead and said, it's going to be slim pickings for a couple years. Well, might be time to step down.
Yeah,
and it's a rebuilding situation for sure in Salem.
Yeah, I felt like the biggest thing. I remember talking to Hector Longo from the Lawrence Eagle Tribune about this. When Canoni's little brother and Lorenz went to
the little brothers.
Yeah, Joe Lorenz.
Joe Lorenz was the quarterback last year for Wyndham.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So when Joe Lorenz and David Canoni went to Wyndham, that was sort of the signal of things are changing around here. You know what I mean? Because that's an athletic family. Those are 2 kids that won championships at Salem High School.
Danny Canoni. David Canoni was the linebacker from Bedford.
I'm telling you, seventh year, man. It's not easy. There's a lot of, I got all these names in my head. I'm through 4,000 of them. But yeah, you're right. And again, when those kids went to Wyndham, that's sort of signaled it's a new, you know what I mean? It's a new era. This is how this is happening now. And so, it's interesting. It's too bad to see Salem down because obviously there were some great teams they had there. But for Concord, it's exciting. You've said it before. A lot of people said it's nice to have Concord involved. You know what I mean? When they're good again. And for basketball, they've been down a long time. They've had a good baseball team, but the football team's just never quite been there. They haven't been bad, but they just every year they're sort of, Concord good. And this seems like the year that. They're killing people. They've scored 87 points in their first 2 games.
To me, this is the best team that they had since Coach Brown's son, Kyle Brown, was playing. I don't know if you remember the 2 great Kyle running backs from Concord. They had Kyle Starr and Kyle Brown. Kyle Brown is the son, I think, of Coach Eric Brown from Concord, who was on the staff with Bob Cameron when he was there, and I got a chance to hook up with Cameron, who was one of the coaches for the Chad high school football game this past summer. You mentioned Wyndham. Oh, and by the way, I just want to thank Steve Mello, the AD at Concord, for hosting us and doing a good job, taking care of us over there at Concord last night at Memorial Field.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they did a real good job. So I want to thank Steve Mello and his staff for being cool, and Coach Brown, of course, as well.
We got some complaints, quiet complaints this summer. I think in the BST Summer League by some Concord parents that we weren't covering the team enough, and there was a little favoritism. Here's the rule at New Hampshire Sports Page: if you're good, we'll come see you play.
Oh, boy.
You have to be good. I don't know how else to say it. We don't cover terrible teams, and if you're not in the mix, we're not going to go see you play. We covered Sauhegan all the time, and probably not going to go see him this year. I mean, it's just how it works.
Jeez.
Look what happens when you're good.
Pompous attitude. We'll take a break, come back. We'll talk to a team
Give the people
who we
what they
know
want.
is good. 61-0 yesterday over Manchester West. Bedford, yeah, they're pretty good too. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show. News Radio 610 and 96.7.
From Manchester West to Winnicott, Central to Somersworth, and Portsmouth to Plymouth, the New Hampshire High School Football Show brings you the best coverage in the state on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Early start yesterday afternoon between rivals, I use the air quotes, rivals Manchester West and Bedford. The two schools actually used to play together at Manchester West until Bedford opened up the doors. Was it 2006, 2007? The guy that was there at the start of the program and is there really enjoying the fruits of his labors over the first 6 or 7 years, Kurt Hines, Bulldogs head coach, joins us on the phone. Coach Hines, good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay. What year was it that you guys first played that first varsity game?
6 years ago. So this is my 6th year.
Wow. And you could tell that, when you start to grow something, you got the seeds and maybe you think they're magic seeds or whatever, magic beans, and you put them in the ground and you cultivate them and you water them and you talk nice to them that you hope someday it kind of grows up into what you want it to. And it certainly happened that way for you at Bedford. 61-0 was the final score yesterday at Manchester West. I actually got to catch the first half of that game because the West Field is right down the street from the radio station, so I popped over there and I saw all I needed to know about this year's edition of the Bedford Bulldogs. You guys were up 35-0 at the half, and it's not like you guys were running up the score. I mean, is that hard as a coach when you guys are just having your way with the other team and you don't really want to pour it on, but it's just one of those situations where that's just the way it's going to work out sometimes?
It is. It's hard on the receiving end, and I've been there my first 2 years as head coach here. We had the tables were turned, and that very well may happen again in the future. But when you're the team trying to keep the score down a little bit, it is hard. I give my hats off to the entire coaching staff at West because their kids played with class. They didn't get chippy at all, and that's tough to do. We did, as you said, we had a running clock in the second half, and we kept the ball on the ground the entire time and ran it between the tackles. But they're in a tough situation. I respect the program a lot, but I feel for them.
You guys, the identity last year, the identity from afar at least, was, James Caparell and Collins on the outside, Dylan York running the ball and so forth. And obviously you guys had a terrific run all the way to the championship to Winnicott. What's the identity so far you think of this team?
I appreciate the way you brought that up. I think the identity from afar, like you said, was James Caparell, Brian Collins, and a few other, stud graduates. There's no doubt that out of the 10 kids, seniors we had graduate last year, 6 of them were just tremendous, not just players, but great young men and great leaders. That being said, that kind of puts a chip on my shoulder because I think too many people do think of Bedford High School the past few years as being the James Caparell show. And you're not going to find a greater kid. He's just phenomenal. He's a tremendous threat. I think what we've been able to prove, if nothing else, these past 2 weeks, we're not where we want to be yet, but we belong in D1, and we can definitely compete in D1. And I think the identity is we're a football program that, in my opinion, pays attention at all levels. Because if we had just focused on our studs of last year, we'd be sitting in a complete different situation right now.
That's Kurt Hines, head coach of the Bedford Bulldogs. His team 2-0. They beat Pinkerton in week 1, 14-12. Put up 61 on the scoreboard yesterday against Manchester West. Afternoon game. How did you like playing in the afternoon compared to the typical nighttime kickoff, or especially on a Friday?
Yeah, I hated it. There's nothing better than playing under the lights. That being said, one of the concerns was would the players come in with a more relaxed, daisical attitude and kind of have to get punched in the face before we started to play, and they proved they didn't have to. That being said, as much as I prefer, 7 o'clock games on a Friday night, it was nice to be home watching the huddle and watching the film before 12 o'clock at night, so that was good.
So I was playing golf this summer, not very well, I may add, and I came in and saw a couple of guys I know. One of the parents of a player I used to cover, and we were talking sports. He said, "Oh, this is my buddy. He an older guy, and he had gone to Pinkerton." And he said, well, "Who's the dominant program now?" And I said, "You ready?" I said, "You guys ready? Here it is. The next great program, sports program in New Hampshire high school sports is Bedford High School." I said, in football and basketball. I'm sure you love me just declaring that right there. But what do you, whether that's the case or no, we know they're covered to coaching, of course, but whether that's the case or not, I mean, do you see it in the youth leagues? And it just seems like there's a real, very organized, concerted effort to get these kids playing at a young age. I see it in football and basketball. How involved are you in that? And do you see the same things that I see?
Absolutely. I'm heavily involved in that because I realize that the success of our program, I think we focus as head coaches of the varsity program we focus on continued success by looking at our JV and freshman programs. It starts well younger than that, and I can't take any credit for this, but we have a very strong youth program. There's 2 of them here in Bedford. So I make it a point, as soon as August 1st rolls around, those younger kids are in the pads. I make it a point to get to several of the practices after ours each week. And the youth coaches have been tremendously supportive in the fact that they invite me to the practices and they ask me to come and kind of talk to them a little bit and kind of build that relationship with the kids. So the kids not only learn more football, but they want to stay in Bedford, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, I remember when you and I talked last season in the preseason, I was saying, oh, you guys are moving up to Division II, and you were never overwhelmed by that. And obviously, you did great that season. But I remember you talking about the numbers. I can't remember how many kids you had last year, but how many kids do you have in the program this year? You had terrific numbers.
Yeah, we're at about 125 kids. Not 125 football players, but kids. So we're trying to turn as many of them into football players as we can. The fact is, and I think everyone throughout the state knows this. Well before Bedford High School was ever an actual school, when it was just a thought, people had always said that the athletes are from Bedford, the big tough kids are from Manchester. And I took that as a personal challenge when I took the job here to say, yeah, there's no doubt we have athletes and we need to utilize them the right way. But that's one of the reasons I do the strength and conditioning year-round with our program so that we can develop those bigger kids. We can joke about it being in the water, but the fact is you have to put in the hard work and the magic beans we talked about earlier. Yep. I mean, it's the hard work. That's all it is.
And you look at that Bedford roster, Dave, and they got 3 kids wearing number 1. They got 2 number 22s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 27s. They got 3 kids wearing number 65. I mean, Coach, can you clean up the roster a little bit? I'm trying to, your kicker doing the kickoffs was number 65, but I don't know which one of the 3 he was. But I'm just kind of joking around with you here, but let me ask you about that Pinkerton game, because going into that game, you really didn't know. I mean, you knew that you can compete as you moved up in the divisions the last couple of years, but then you got Pinkerton staring you in the face for week 1, knowing the history there, knowing Coach O'Reilly and the program that they've got there. And at what point in that game, or was it after the game, that you realized, yeah, we belong? I mean, we really belong.
I think, the people that know me best know that I'm an optimist, and sometimes to a fault. I did feel prior to that game that we can compete with these guys and we could even win. However, that being said, and with the respect I have for the entire Pinkerton coaching staff and the program, the very first 3 plays, at the beginning of the game, we had an incomplete pass, a TFL, we had a batted ball, and we were punting the ball back in the end zone or close to it. And for a brief moment, I thought, dear God, this is going to be ugly. It was probably just before halftime that I thought, you know what, this is a game, that we're going to compete in the entire game. I think we had done enough defensively and offensively. That being said, it wasn't until the final, second ticked off the clock that I could breathe for a second, because they're obviously a powerhouse program that will be in the playoffs this year.
It's got to be fun for the kids, and obviously for you and the rest of the staff, just to look at this. And, next week you go at Londonderry. You've never played at Londonderry, you know what I mean? And then you host Salem. I mean, these are new rivals. These are teams that most of these games, you know what I mean? Conquered later in the year and so forth. I mean, it's got to be exciting for the kids. Obviously, it's a challenge, but you proved you belong already, obviously, emphatically. But, it's got to be fun for the kids. New locations, new atmosphere, so forth. That's kind of what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's the new experiences, and that's a huge part of it. But for us being it's the same last year, moving up from D3 to D2, now in Division 1. Competition breeds success, and when you're playing teams such as Pinkerton and Concord and Central and you name it, you've got to bring your A game each and every week. And the kids are having a blast. We're having a blast. At the same time, we are continually reminding ourselves as a program that the moment that we think we're better than we are, then we're going to have a rude awakening. So, we like where we are, but we're not where we need to be yet.
Coach Hines, let's just quickly talk about a couple of the players. I mean, two guys I'm going to mention right now, the Valis cousins, Nick and Mike. We knew about them last year, and they were playing very good football for you. And I think they're showing more to their games instead of just catching passes this year. You got them running. You got them returning punts. I think Mike might have returned a couple punts for touchdowns yesterday, and Nick is he looks like he's gotten bigger and stronger. In the off season. Nick is the son or is the brother of Andy Valis. Is that the? Because I get confused between the Valises. Okay. Michael is Andy's brother. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Those kids look tremendous. You found this new quarterback, Dan Colella, who I had never heard of prior to last week, and he's not James Caparell. Let's get that straight. But you don't need him to be James Caparell.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the real quick touch on the Valises, there's no doubt. You mentioned the Valis name, and you think football, or at least I do. And Nick, who's one of our senior captains this year, pulled him aside last year, and there's no doubt that he was always going to be a great athlete on the field. But what he hadn't done was really push himself in the weight room. So he put on almost 15 pounds and didn't lose a step. We joked about him being a little chubby, but he didn't lose a step at all as far as speed and explosiveness. So that, you're absolutely right. He has gotten bigger. And Michael, he's just, both of them are tremendous kids of character, young men. But Michael had 2 punt returns for touchdowns last night, in addition to, some offensive touchdowns. So great talent. And Dan Colella, there's no surprise that people hadn't heard about him because of James Caparell. There was no reason for people to hear about him. But Dan's a tremendous athlete in his own right in the lacrosse realm as well as football. And he, too, put on about 9 pounds in the off-season in the weight room, which is tremendous.
Yeah, and there was a running back that I noticed, Aaron Pallas. Looks like a kid that, when you need some yards on the ground, you can go to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron is definitely a north-south runner who likes to lower his shoulder and have that linebacker mentality when he's running the ball.
Coach, we really appreciate the time. We could spend more time with you and talk, throughout the course of the program, but we got to move on to some other things. But congratulations on the win. Congratulations on being 2-0 in Division 1, and enjoy Londonderry next week. Should be fun.
Well, we're getting ready for it right now, so I appreciate the time.
Hey, where are you sending the scouts today? I mean, you got that big Keene game against Exeter tonight. You got Londonderry and Goffstown. So will you have both of those games kind of covered with scouting?
We will. My son, but we live in Goffstown, so I'm going to the Goffstown Londonderry game there to watch my son play.
Oh, so your son plays for Goffstown?
He's a junior in the program, so yes.
Well, I talked to Coach Huff like about a week ago. I live in Goffstown, too, and I got a couple of young sons. I say, Coach Huff, if you can stick around another 12, 15 years, I got a couple of players for you. He said he intends to be there in 12 to 15 years.
Well, he's doing a great job there. I mean, the success he's had in the short time he's been there, he's a great football mind and a great man, so I'm happy for him.
All right, Coach. Maybe I'll see you out there at the game this afternoon. Thanks so much for the time.
All right, take care. Thank you.
All right, Kurt Hines from Bedford. Quick timeout. We will go around the state, kind of take a look at some things, some of the other games that we haven't talked about yet. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and 96.7.
From Manchester West to Winnicott, Central to Somersworth, and Portsmouth to Plymouth, the New Hampshire High School Football Show brings you the best coverage in the state on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Wrapping up the show. These 1-hour shows go by really fast, don't they? Pete Terrier, Dave Haley, NHSportsPage.com. We're filming the show as we always do. We're going to post it on the website, NHSportsPage.com, so you can actually watch us do the show and maybe see what Dave brought in for breakfast, see how he's looking after a rough Friday night.
I shower before these shows.
Yeah, well, hey, you probably
like my
should. I do. I actually do.
You did?
now.
Well, the 7 o'clock shows. No.
You
came in here in PJs once last year.
I like
Literally.
it coming in here at 8 o'clock. It gives you an extra hour of sleep. I can collect myself a little bit. And hey, we're not getting to bed till like 1 o'clock in the morning, going out and doing Friday night. And I always have to stay up and watch Jamie Staten doing his Friday night football on WMUR. Gives me a look at some of these players that we read about in the paper and read about online. It's just my Friday night routine, and I don't feel so tired in the morning on Saturday. But be sure to check out the video cast of the show. We were talking during the break about some games going on today, and one that we have not mentioned yet. And if you haven't seen Plymouth play in recent years, and you hear about the hype, and you hear about Chuck Lenahan and all that, he's going to be in this area. He's going to be playing at Wyndham. The Plymouth Bobcats against the Wyndham Jaguars should be a good matchup. They were both playoff teams in Division 4 last year. Now they're part of Division 2. If you want to see Plymouth play, this might be your chance. They're also coming to Manchester against Trinity, which will be a great game later in the season.
Huge.
But Plymouth at Wyndham, 1:30 kickoff down at Wyndham High School today.
Yeah, that's a huge game there because I feel like people believe that Wyndham, and maybe Monadnock, the fourth or fifth best team in that division. And Plymouth, I was a little concerned about Plymouth that they gave up 29 points to Kingswood last week, but Kingswood scored 38. And I also found out that Plymouth was up huge on that game and let all their subs in. The thing with Plymouth, I said in the preseason, I'll say it today, they've got skill players, great ones, and Kyle Riesert and, of course, Colin Sullivan, John Thomas, Jared Cool. They've got great skill players back from that championship team. What they have is an all-new offensive line, and if that offensive line and defensive line gels, plays well, and they don't lose stride on the lines, then they're the favorite. I picked them to win it, and I'm not backing off from it yet.
Hey, you talked about this a little bit earlier, just some of the games that we haven't touched on too much. That Spalding victory at Timberlane last night. I picked Timberlane. Timberlane looked good in the Queen City Jamboree against Pinkerton. They beat Alvern last week. I think we found out, kind of where Alvern is in terms with where they are in Division 1, losing 35-0 against a Trevor Knightless Nashua South. But Spalding going to Plastow and winning 27-14. Pretty impressive win for the Red Raiders, in my opinion. Yeah,
Trey Scott, good running back for Spalding, and they're always tough, and I feel like last couple of years that they've lost a lot of close games. I remember they lost a game. They had a kid get injured in the middle. I think it was Timberlane last year, where they had a kid get injured late in the game, and then they ended up losing. And the kid had a neck injury, so I think it kind of messed with their whole vibe as a team. But yeah, the Fighting McIsaacs are pretty good over there, and that's a good win over Timberlane, who's got Eric Nelson back and Tyler Fury.
Yeah,
Derek's
another
little brother.
Fury. Yeah.
Another Fury. I got that one right. But yeah, absolutely, it's a good win there. There's a lot of these first couple of weeks are fun, especially with the new divisions, because you're trying to get a sense of how this is going to play out, and I'm interested to see how good Londonderry is today. Coach Hines just talked about he's going to go see that game against Goffstown. I mean, Londonderry looked great. Dennis Bishop, huge game of Week 1 for the Lancers.
How about BG? Close loss against Winnicott last Saturday night.
Without C.J. Boykin.
I think they played without Boykin again last night. Not totally sure about that, but they went into Dover and they beat them up 42-20.
Yeah, I mean, Dover's down. The weird thing with Dover is that they have the numbers in the school, but they don't seem to have it in the program there, which is frustrating, I'm sure, for Ken Osborne and those guys. But, yeah, I think BG is going to be right there. The Winnicott game, again, was the surprise game of the night because Nashua North got beaten so badly at Keene last week. Keene-Exeter is the game of the night. And one last thing I want to say, because we only got about a minute to go. We've got... and we've been working on this for months and months, but we've got a brand new New Hampshire Sports Page website. It's in the transition this morning. Some people can see it, maybe some people can't, but keep checking back if you can't. But a brand new website you could play around on this website now for an hour with all the new things. We have recruiting packages and DVDs you can buy and team pages. It's really exciting for John Kesty, Pete Terry, Elliot Bless, and myself. So check it out today if you can. We're really excited excited about it.
And the highlights from Concord and Salem last night.
And Pete Terry on camera.
Walters Indy.
Yeah, I'm excited to
ripping
see
off
that.
a 91-yard touchdown run.
We know where to find highlights, boy. I'll
What?
tell ya.
And Robbie Law.
50 points every week.
Robbie Law faked me. I'm doing like play-by-play, as John is filming the full game, and Robbie Law faked me on a touchdown run where I thought he handed it off, and he still had it, and he also faked out the Salem defense because he went 60 yards for a score. But that kid has got good ball fake as a quarterback.
Happy to see Concord back in the mix, and Eric Brown. I've only met him once or twice, but seems like a very good guy. Happy for those guys.
All right, that's all the time we have. I want to thank Kurt Hines for joining us on the phone. We'll be back next week in the same very spot, 8 to 9 a.m., the New Hampshire High School Football Show. And, of course, look for the video cast of the program on nhsportspage.com. For Dave Haley, I'm Pete Terrier. Have a good Saturday, everybody.